We started off wanting to make a video on why carnivore might be hard or not work for you initially, based on digestion and stomach acid and some of those aspects. It's involved into something a bit more that I hope will be really helpful for you today. Okay, so what are the things that we need for good digestion and ultimately then good absorption and thriving health?
So our previous video was diet by design, and if you look at the design of the human digestive tract, obviously it's from the mouth down, but the key component in terms of processing food is good quality stomach acid and bile, and
gut microbiome.
And the gut microbiome, which isn't in the stomach, but it's further down. So it'll be in the oral cavity and the nasal cavity and the small intestine. But in order for all of that to work, the boiler room, the stomach, needs a fair amount of acid, and it needs bile for breakdown of fats. So those are the key components in terms of the beginning of your digestive process. So one can get into other aspects, but I'm sure we'll deal with those as we go.
Okay, so let's maybe start with stomach acid. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that, and people typically think that if there's heartburn or reflux that you need an anti-acid because there's too much stomach acid, and that's one of the main misconceptions we'd like to deal with. Our stomach acid is designed to be about 1.5 acidity, which is more than that of a vulture and a predator cat, which also indicates we are designed to eat very much a carnivore type diet. But by putting something alkaline in or something anti-acid, we reduce our stomach acid to such a degree, even more so with PPIs and long-term treatment of that.
Yeah.
We harm our stomach acid so much that we absolutely destroy good digestion, specifically that of protein.
Yeah, look, if you look at sort of how we developed as beings, initially being scavengers, not necessarily hunting the animals ourselves, but chasing other animals off their prey and scavenging what was left after they had, so they'd had what they need. The development of the larger brain in human developed as a result of fats and proteins. And, from a scavenger perspective, you have, all scavengers have very high stomach acid, so the vultures, the hyenas, those kinds of animals. And we pretty much fit into that kind of category in terms of our gut design. And if you don't have a strong enough stomach acid, you're unable to digest anything or break it down, so that further down the line the gut biome can then pick and choose what they want from that and then create metabolites to feed you. The modern perspective is that when you have something like reflux or heartburn, that it is too much stomach acid, which is incorrect. The esophagus goes down, and it forms a very large muscular valve that sits just underneath the diaphragm. And this valve is like a sphincter. It's a sort of a slightly curved sphincter, very strong muscle, and that is acid sensitive. So when there is the right amount of acid, that keeps closed. It opens temporarily for swallowing and to receive food. But if the stomach content is alkaline, or the acid is not strong enough, that valve relaxes. So it's almost like a heat sink in a motor car. If there isn't heat, it doesn't close, like a thermostat. So it works very much like that, and people have this misconception that acid in the throat is too much acid, but that's because the valve opens, fumes, sulfuric acid fumes, hydrochloric, whatever acid there is in there, start rising up into the esophagus. Now the esophagus doesn't have a thick mucosal layer and the right type of cellular structure to weather acid, and that's the sensation of heartburn and reflux. So, it's counterintuitive based on what we've been taught, but the best way to get the stomach valve to close is to increase the acid content, and that then resolves the heartburn and reflux.
So we actually often need to help a client increase their stomach acid for all this functionality to work properly. Sometimes it can be done with some apple cider vinegar before a meal, half apple cider vinegar, half water, shot a few minutes before a meal. But if there's been long-term decrease in stomach acidity by treatment, we can also use something like betaine HCl with pepsin to help restore the stomach acid, which is absolutely critical for digestion, absorption, and health.
Well, the sort of parameters of stomach acid and how it's formed its basis is salt. So if you don't have the salt, you can't create the hydrochloric situation. So a lot of people have been told, now don't eat salt, because that's bad for you as well, which is totally incorrect. So
table salt, yes.
Table salt,
not time minerals.
Yeah, not all salts are equal, but that's a video for another time. If you look at somebody who's predominantly eating vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds, their requirement for stomach acid starts declining. So in the modern society where we're told you have to eat your vegetables and your fruits and your nuts and
plant
seeds,
proteins,
and plant proteins and so on, those don't require stomach acid because the body doesn't really break them down anyway, either way. Even if you do have high stomach acid, it doesn't break down. So a long-term situation where you're not requiring stomach acid then slows down the stomach acid production. A lack of salt will do the same thing. How the human body works is that the more you prompt it with proteins and fats, salt, there are other aspects involved, but those are a deeper science. What happens is that the stomach acid slowly then starts coming back to where it should be. Digestion starts occurring better, and nutrition increases, and bowel issues stop. So everybody at the moment is struggling with some kind of digestive issue, and that's because of our diet, because of the drugs that have been given to us, and the incorrect advice like don't eat salt, and don't eat fats, because it's going to give you cholesterol, which is another story. So the whole system has basically been set up to deteriorate digestion and nutritional uptake, and that is where one of the first steps in terms of becoming ill is that when you don't have the correct minerals and nutritional metabolites in your system, the body struggles and eventually something breaks and you start showing symptoms, and then it goes chronic, and then it becomes unbearable.
So maybe we can just finish our first point there and link back to our previous video. If you feel that meat makes you feel heavy or uncomfortable, one of your main reasons could be just a low stomach acid. That can occur for a variety of reasons, but that's completely repairable and highly advisable to do so. One of the other very common issues we come across with our clients is a lack of bile. And that's primarily for the absorption or digestion of fats. And it's also something that can make you feel uncomfortable if you go on a carnivore or a healthier diet. And also critical for us to be able to digest and absorb our fats. Obviously, we need good fats for a huge variety of reasons: the brain, the hormones, the skin, cell membranes, and so on and so on. So that is something that's also very important to repair.
Yeah, what you'll find is that when somebody transitions back to their species-specific diet, eating more fats and proteins, cheeses, butters, those kinds of things, they struggle initially with nausea, discomfort, because if there isn't enough bile in the system to deal with that, because bile is a surfactant, it breaks down fats. It's like dishwashing liquid, if you want to put it that way. And they feel nauseous, and or the stomach can't handle it, so it flushes it. And you can have sort of bouts of diarrhea, discomfort, cramping. But the bottom line is that that is a transition, and people are sometimes a little bit hesitant to go through that phase. There are ways of supporting it with bile stimulants, salt being one of them, and then various other things that can contribute to that on a food basis. Some plant extracts can stimulate bile. Dandelion is one of them. There are various other herbs that can be combined in a small amounts just to stimulate bile. But the key is to long-term get back into eating proteins and fats and push through that difficult phase. It's usually no more than a week or so, unless it's a really bad situation and there's bile stones or gallstones and the ducts are blocked, which is one of the reasons why I don't eat plants anymore, because oxalic acid binds the calcium and it gets stuck in the bile ducts. So
one of the many problems it can cause.
yes, so plant matter will do that.
So in a healthy function, how does it work? The liver produces the bile, the gallbladder stores it, and then at mealtime or when fat is consumed, it squirts
Yes.
enough bile to help with that digestion.
Well, the fascinating thing about how the human digestive system works is it doesn't start in the stomach. It starts firstly in the olfactory regions. So you will smell food, your mouth will start watering. So your nose has already sampled that food. Your nervous system, the oral biome and the enzymes in your mouth already start reacting to that. So that's already the first part of digestion. When you put it into your mouth, that then gets further signaled to the stomach and the liver and so on, and the right amount of bile, a certain amount of stomach acid and other enzymes, pepsin and various other digestive enzymes are produced to deal with what you smelt, what you now taste. So the receptor is the face and the mouth, and that signals the stomach how to react to what is on its way. If those things are out of kilter, or if you don't have enough bile to recirculate, because bile recycles in the body, it doesn't vanish, unless of course you've had a really bad nausea, vomiting, either alcohol induced and or something that's toxified your gut and it's flushed it all out. So you will have a deficit of bile, but it does recycle in the body, so it gets refined by the liver, put back into the gallbladder for the next round. So the key is to try and get that bile level correct and adjust the stomach acid based on the input. And it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Okay, so again, if the symptoms aren't too severe and it's just a discomfort with eating fats, it can typically be corrected with diet if you push through the initial phase. And sometimes someone does need help with it.
Yes.
So in the past we've used some ox bile and tatka and so on, but you've actually developed metabile that is a more specie-specific bile stimulant.
Well, you must understand, if you're eating ox bile, what does a cow eat?
A cow eats
Grass.
Cow's a herbivore.
They don't necessarily have the same kind of bile. So, tatka is a derivative of bear bile, which is more carnivore based, like we are. What the metabile capsules that I've developed are a mirabolite structure with certain herbal extracts and an inclusion of some ox bile extract, and that in the right ratio will stimulate a gradual growth of the bile. So you've got to just look at it you can't just assume that a bile from another animal is going to be suitable for a human. So we try to work with the stimulation in that product, just to get it to start. And once the bile produces
the diet
yes.
and the microbiome and everything else.
So once the bile starts producing and recycling in the body, that auto corrects, and the more bile you have, the quicker it breaks down gallstones and clears out the ducts, and then the natural flow continues again. So it is a phase that you have to go through. Once you get into that phase, your nutrition picks up, your energy levels pick up, your digestive system works better. You become less aware of the fact that you're struggling to digest food.
So I think what we're saying is a carnivore diet is highly suitable for us, a species-specific diet. And when your stomach acid and bile is in place, you'll know it seems you'll know based on how you feel how that is the appropriate diet for you. One of the other things I think we can consider is the gut microbiome, which is a massive topic on its own. You can talk about it for hours.
Yes.
But maybe we can narrow it down a little bit in terms of why it's necessary, a healthy biome, what influences it, how we ruin it, and how we can potentially repair it.
Yeah, for instance, if you look at the biome in the mouth and in the nose, and the biome post-stomach, which is in the small intestine, duodenum, ileum, and jejunum, though there are different types of bacteria at different locations, all the way down to the colon, which are more sort of fecal bacteria.
Oh, what? There's good bacteria. Oh, we shouldn't just kill all bacteria.
No. The bacteria are our are our assist. They're symbiotic to our existence.
100%.
They so, for instance, the nasal bacteria and the oral bacteria. If you look at a baby, and they crawl around when they're small, they put everything in their mouths because that's their sensing. They don't have a frontal lobe understanding of what's going on around them, so they're testing everything around them with the nose and with the mouth. Now, the same thing happens with when you're an adult. If your gut biome is incorrect as a result of eating incorrect food, the mouth biome and the nasal biome changes as well. So if you're not exposing your body to the correct input, they change. So the whole system changes, and the biome are really critical in terms of breaking down what you've digested in order to create a metabolite which is suitable for your species. So, I mean, it can get quite complicated, but generally you're born with, digestively, you're born with 5 keystone bacteria. If you haven't had any kind of intervention in your bacteria, i.e. antibiotics, cesarean births, anesthetics, painkillers, various kinds of drugs that kill these things. So if you've got a good set of bacteria, your natural craving for a species-specific diet will be correct. For instance, if you take a young child and try and feed them vegetables, they don't want to eat vegetables because instinctually they know those things have toxins in. And we override that, eventually break down the gut biome, and that's when they start getting runny noses and flus and coughs and colds, because the body's trying to get rid of all that toxicity. That's a topic for another discussion, but that's the basis of, if you take a child that has been in the stomach being provided ketones, and then further breast milk providing ketones, and then you start putting pear juice and spinach and all kinds of things into their diet, that is when you'll notice the first post-nasal and or glazed donut or snotty nose type thing, and that's pure toxin dumping. It's not that they caught a bug. It's toxicity coming out of the system.
And also often when there's intense cravings involved, cases of yeast or candida or a microbiome upset, it's the bacteria that's craving what they need to feed on.
Absolutely. So the correct biome or the incorrect biome, either way, works through a polypeptide sensor in the brain, which creates hunger or desire for something, or a craving. So if you're continuously eating carbohydrates and sugars and all these things, the gut biome changes, and the gut biome then signals that polypeptide sensor in the brain to crave those things, because they don't really care what you want, they care what they want. That's what they thrive on. When you have the correct gut biome, that changes completely. So observationally, what I've noticed with people that have gone this route naturally become carb and sugar avoidant, because the gut biome is restored back to its original. So that's how you get over all of these cravings for sugar and carbohydrates. So yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but when your gut biome is correct to the keystone bacteria, all of those cravings just vanish, and people get into shape, get healthy, feel more energetic, thrive. Whereas if they stay in that continuous wanting bread and pasta, crackers, biscuits, cereals, sugar, and the vegetables and the fruits and the nuts, they never get out of that rut, because it's the gut biome that's determining the cravings.
Can we maybe look at the most common perpetrator in this regard, and that is antibiotics, which I don't know if there's a single person that hasn't had, or whose child hasn't had, which in very, very severe cases could be necessary, but is of course completely overprescribed. So and I think also underestimated of what is required to repair the microbiome, that can even take years sometimes. What happens in the gut where there's antibiotics?
Well, antibiotics is exactly what it says. It's antibiotic. which means it
anti-life.
Anti-life, i.e. it kills the biome. It doesn't destroy all of the biome, but it depletes it to the point that incorrect biome can then take place. And that you'll notice quite readily with people who have SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, where if the let's say the big boys in the stomach that belong there have been removed, fecal bacteria then creeps in from the colon side and starts populating the small intestines. So that there's a constant war between bacterium going on inside your system. So you've got to enable the right ones, and anything that damages the biome is going to create health issues, because that's the seat of all nutrition in your body. We don't eat our food. The bacteria give us metabolites from our food.
And I think important to remember that we cannot live without good bacteria. And there's a paradigm of toxins, viruses, bacteria, toxicity, yes, but that everything around you is trying to kill you, and the important thing is to try and kill all bacteria, whether it is with sanitizers and medication and sprays and mouthwash, a variety of things, because the mindset is no, kill all bacteria off. But we cannot live without good bacteria, not only from a digestive point of view, but immune responsing, metabolism, brain function, all these things that are dependent on it.
You know, the thing is that, you know, people talk about an immune system. What are they actually talking about? And I think they don't really understand what the symbiotic relationship with bacterium is. So archaean bacteria are all over your body. In fact, it's probably the majority of the weight of your body. And what they do is they help you to deal with toxicity and invaders. So if you damage the cornerstone or the keystone bacteria, there's a sort of a cascade effect right through the whole body, where the body is now confused, the bacteria are confused because there's the wrong kind, and people think, oh, I have an immune issue or what. No, you have a biome issue, and it's body wide. So bacteria can pleomorph from simple bacteria into a more complex bacterium, and even into a fungus inside your system to deal with and mop up toxicity. Now people see that as a symptom of an illness, but it's actually just a response to toxicity which the biome are trying to deal with.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we go and we throw antibiotics in and everything else we can to kill the biome.
Yeah.
And that's a bad idea, because all you're doing is you then kill the biome off, and the toxicity lays in rest and it continues to build, and then you start getting really bad chronic illnesses from that.
Yeah, and to realize we have a skin microbiome as much as a gut microbiome, and a healthy microbiome contains a lot of variety of bacteria actually. So even to think more harsh cleaning products to kill all the bacteria around us, no, that's going to destroy your skin microbiome. And for a baby or a child that's crawling around, that can be extremely harmful.
Yes.
It actually damages myelin sheaths of the neurons and a whole variety of stuff. But the whole concept of kill the bacteria, no. The good bacteria need to fight off the bad stuff, and it's always part of doing something that the body needs. So we can put ourselves completely on the back foot by trying to kill off all the bacteria around us. Not that you can even do that.
No, look,
bacteria is in us.
You know, the whole paradigm is based on germ theory, and germ theory states that there are all these bugs out there trying to kill you, viruses and things that are not really there. What it is it's a depletion of the correct biome inside your system. So if you look at the animal world, they don't take antibiotics, they don't clean themselves with shampoo and all kinds of
Antibacterial soaps.
They don't wake up and spray the bush with disinfectants and whatever. There's a thing in the bacterial world called bedding. It's also present in the culinary environment, where if you have a super clean kitchen in a hotel or a restaurant, the knock-on effect of that is that people get sick from that food. If you allow the bacteria to seat and settle and sort out their war, on the breadboards and or on the cutting boards and on the cooking surfaces and prep surfaces. If you allow that to happen correctly, they eventually stabilize themselves out. And your body is the same. So if you're continuously killing off good bacteria, what you're doing is you're allowing the incorrect biome to take hold. And then you have other issues. You know, a simple example of how this works is that if the gut biome is damaged in the gut, in the small intestine, the protection of the intestine is then compromised. You have a mast cell activation. And then you have a response to, for instance, if you go for an IgG test and they scratch you and they find, oh no, you're allergic to egg yolk, but it's on your skin. That is a bacterial signal via the nervous system that is a identified invader.
So before we just get into some food allergy symptoms and more of that angle, just to complete the microbiome for now, there are some things we can do to improve the microbiome. So some of the keystone bacteria that gets destroyed through medication and a variety of applications can be reseeded into the gut.
Yes.
So there's a few we address in our gut healing protocol, and then sunlight is always useful and even enhances the right microbiome.
Well, you know, just as a note on that, just living in a Wi-Fi non-native EMF blue light environment kills good bacteria in your system, and it allows incorrect bacteria to grow.
Even mold,
fungus, various things. And what these things are doing is they're trying to deal with the toxicity of that blue light and non-native EMF, and that affects your body as badly. You know, the key here would be to try and put the correct biome in the right colony amounts so that they can overwhelm the bad bacteria and then re-establish a balance the way it's designed inside your system. So various probiotic approaches, single strain probiotics in stages. From the most
specific
important
order. So maybe lastly today we can just take a look at food allergies while we're talking about the gut, and food allergy testing that is often done to establish what is actually causing the gut to react. So a test like that will tell you what the gut and the body is currently responding to in a certain way. A lot of that can be resolved by fixing the diet, fixing the gut lining, in order to get rid of the histamine responses. So we'll get into that a little bit more briefly. My one take on it is, as far as gluten is concerned, it is just toxic. I don't really care about responses for that because it is poison. There is nothing about grains and sugar, wheat, all of those products that are actually good for us. So that aside, some people might always react to it despite being well and recovered and healed in their digestive system. But as far as foods go, like let's say you're currently reacting to something that is actually good for you and that the body needs, like egg. What is happening there?
Okay, so the little hairs in the small intestine, the villi, the good bacteria have placeholders on those particular villi for a reason. They, number one, help protect the villi, and below the villi you have your mast cell or your lining, which is one cell thick. And
incredible.
Once those bacteria are not present and the incorrect bacteria come in, the lining is no longer protected, so you get a situation which is commonly called leaky gut. And leaky gut allows unprocessed by the correct biome toxins, neurotoxins and endotoxins to enter into the bloodstream. And because it is unprocessed as a metabolite, it's pure raw material, the body will react to that as an invasion, and that will stimulate a nervous system response body-wide to tell the body there's toxin present. Other bacteria in the system will try and clean that up. So you may get inflammation, you may get a skin eruption, headaches, nausea, watering eyes, mucosal discharge, and a host of other things. as a what people would term autoimmune response,
Exactly.
but it's not an autoimmune response, it's a toxicity response.
Mm.
So the critical thing to understand is that when the gut biome is incorrect, a lot of the bacteria that enter into the gut
Yes.
will, number one, create pathogenic responses in the body by producing more toxins, because they're going to try and keep the good biome out, because they're now being fed sugar and carbohydrates, so they're happy. They don't really care if the host dies. They're worried about their own survival, whereas the other keystone bacteria are symbiotic to us, and the relationship there is beneficial both ways. So one needs to understand that there are bad bacteria for you if you have none of your own good bacteria to combat those. So in immune response and histamine or toxicity response, your gut biome are actually the defense system. You know, you have white blood cells and leukocytes and all these things in the blood, but think about what those things actually are. They are similar and or in function bacteria, self-generated internally, that go in and break down toxins, neutralize poison and venoms, and remove them to the clearing pathways where they'll exit the body. So a histamine reaction is a big red flag that there's toxicity in the body that is unchecked. And you know, it's a different paradigm, but when you understand this, it's so much easier to resolve these issues, because you need to get down to the root. Usually the root is an elimination of certain toxins or foods that have been allowed through, correct the gut biome at the same time, do an elimination for a while, reseed with the correct bacteria, try and colonize the body with the correct biome, and miraculously all of these things go away. Some people suffer with allergies their whole lives because they've never really corrected the correct bacterial balance. So
Which would heal the gut lining, not allow
look,
particles through that's seen as toxicity.
you know, the funny thing about the gut lining is that it can regenerate between 3 to 7 days. Sometimes doesn't repair all at once, and usually the damage is only in 1 or 2 parts of the intestine. It's not the whole intestine, unless you let it go long enough, and then you really have problems. But if you do an elimination diet with a species-specific diet, reseed the correct biome, and try and colonize those up to the right level, the healing process is quite rapid. You know, if you think about it, it took you 10 years to get to this point, but you can fix it in under 3 weeks if you do it properly. You know, people don't want to live their whole lives with pain and suffering and all these irritations, but they're also not prepared to be disciplined for 2 to 3 weeks to get that resolved. And then obviously food seems to be a habitual thing, but it's not a habitual thing, it's a gut biome driven desire. So yeah, the biome is critical. Everything around you, everything in nature has that balance, and us as humans tend to disrupt that balance because we've got these funny ideas about how we can deplete all this stuff around us, and that everything's trying to attack us, and that's not the case.
Cool. Awesome. Some aspects of the gut and digestion that you might not have heard before, but that can really help you in your journey going forward. And please feel free to contact us if you would like specific help on where your body is at. There's a lot of help and hope out there.